Hi everyone. Welcome to another instalment of Train Your Dog Month. I'm Katrina Firth from the APDT, and tonight we're going to be talking about assessments. And I'm joined by our current chair, Jane Robinson. Hi, Jane.
Hi there.
Denise Armstrong, who's our vice chair,
Hello.
and Chris Mancini, who is our previous chair, previous vice chair, head of education. Um, why don't you just tell people a little bit about yourselves and where you are? Jane, why don't we start with you?
Yes, well, I'm Jane Robinson. Am I? Do I know who I am? I'm Jane Robinson. I'm the current chair of the Association of Pet Dog Trainers. I'm based in North London, where I run puppy classes, um, one-to-one bespoke training, and behaviour therapy. That's me.
Denise, do you want to go next?
Okay, so I'm Denise Armstrong. I'm based in a village called Little Haddon, which is by Stansted Airport, which most people know about the airport, but not the village. And I run red dog training, providing classes, agility, and one-to-one bespoke training and support. And I also run an adventure park specifically set up, which is a secure field for dogs that can't be let loose in public.
Great. And Chris, it's you.
And I'm Chris Mancini, and I'm based up in Cumbria, running Puppy Pals Cumbria classes and one-to-ones and packages and even some online stuff as well.
Perfect. So you guys are all assessors and we've all been assessed, haven't we?
Yeah,
Indeed.
absolutely.
Hope so, because we're all full APDT members. Chris, why don't you start us off with how the assessment used to be?
Oh, okay. So back in the day, which is many years ago, and I was trying to remember exactly when, but I can't. It was in the 90s, I'm pretty sure. That seems so long ago now, doesn't it? And basically, you contacted the office, which I believe was CC Guard at the time, and said you wanted to be assessed, and she sorted you out an assessor. It was just one person, and you had to just tell them when your classes were, and they didn't exactly tell you when they were going to rock up. It was just going to be at some point in the next 3 or 4 weeks or whatever. And so then they would rock up for your class, sit there with a little clipboard making notes, then have a little chat with you afterwards, and then they'd go away. You wouldn't find out at all at the time whether or not you'd pass, and they'd pop in a report to the office, and CC would get in touch with you. And I actually originally started assessing in that way.
Right. Great. And Jane, how is the assessment process currently?
Well, currently it's very, very different to that. The assessment process at the moment is split into two different areas. First, we ask potential candidates to send in written work, and they'll be asked to answer various questions from understanding the 4 quadrants to recommending bits of equipment or not, as the case may be, and writing an essay, for example, about an imaginary class that you would take. And the assessors receive that homework and they mark it. And then, if the candidate's homework meets the criteria, we then invite them to run a class, a live class, with about 4 owners and their dogs. And we are assessing candidate to a very strict criteria. We never know whether they've passed or not. And then after the class that the candidate has taught, the assessors will then meet with the candidate and discuss how that class went, what do they think they could have done better, what did they observe about the dogs and the handlers, all sorts of questions. So if we've got anything that perhaps was unclear in the written work, or anything that perhaps we wanted to know more about in the actual class scenario, that's what the oral part of the assessment process is about. It's just to find out more about what the candidate knows. And it's really difficult to teach. We appreciate that it's very difficult to teach a class when you don't have much history about who you're teaching, and the dogs will be of different standards and different understanding from the owners, and we understand all that. So it's just to make the candidates feel more comfortable, and let them talk about how they felt it went. And then sorry,
No, carry on.
I was going to say, and then we let all the candidates know at the same time whether they've passed or whether they're not ready for full membership.
Perfect. Yeah, it can. That was how I did my assessment. Bit like driving tests. I say, like, the best people passed second time, because I did fail my first assessment, and I think I've said that on a previous live. I think I'd been training about 3 years, to be honest, when I took my first assessment, and I think I was late to my assessment, and I was just all a bit flustered, and I just made some silly errors, really, and because everything was going on all at the same time, I didn't have my eyes looking at what somebody was doing, and they did something which breaks our code of practice. So the APDT is our motto is kind, fair, effective, which means we don't allow for harsh methods, and we don't really allow for putting dogs into positions by compelling them, so pulling them into downs and things like that, and that's what happened to me. And then the second one for me was it felt like one of those. I thought, is this a setup? Because there was a lady who was very elderly, and she had a 10-month-old Irish Wolfhound, and I was like, where did you get this woman from? Because I was just, why have you got this dog? I really was like, oh my goodness. So, and I did finally pass on my second go. So that's my kind of story of the first one being like a bit panicked and a bit stressed and feeling like I was ready, but having no idea of what it was going to be like. Then going into a room of 4 or 5 owners, being quite like, oh, right, okay, they're not just little 12-week-old puppies that I've been teaching for the last 3 years, or people that I've started having a relationship with, because my group classes for adults were on sort of assessment only, so I'd go and do a one-to-one with them first, so I kind of knew everyone and it's a lovely way to work if you can get clients on board with that way of working, so that they don't just come into a class as adults, but not everyone can do that. So yeah, quite a big one for me. Does anyone else have any sort of stories like that? Any funny stories? Or somebody mentioned a camera. Denise mentioned a camera earlier when we were talking pre-show.
Yes. So I must have been the transition between sort of the old to the newish one, which is about to go through another transition. But I can remember going into my assessment, and funny enough, it was Chris, who's here, was one of my assessors up at Carol Fawley's place. And I can remember going in, I was so nervous, and I did the meet and the greet, and then when I went into the class, I had a European trick champion in one of my classes, and a tiny 10 to 12-week-old puppy. That was my variation. But I can remember doing the class and just being so nervous about having got everything right. And I teach outdoors, and of course the practical was indoors for a start, so there's me bellowing out. I'm just trying to tone down the voice because I'm not having to shout because you're indoors this time. And then we went through to the oral, and it took me by surprise because there was a camera up in the back corner, and the camera was there to record the assessors asking me questions, but in the back of your mind you've got this camera behind you, and I'm thinking you soon forget about it, but I was just like, oh dear, didn't expect to be on camera. But it was behind, I only saw the back of my head, it was just recording the assessors in front of me. But yeah, that was interesting.
Jane, can you remember
Yeah,
anything about yours? Chris?
I was so nervous. I can't even, so nervous. And that's why, I mean, we've all been there and we're assessing, we know what it feels like. So our primary concern is to help the candidates relax. Not easy, but because we've all been there. I don't remember a thing except getting my 4 quadrants in a pickle, and as most people do, and packing up the car and going home. And the rest is complete blur because I was so completely terrified and nervous. And I kind of have a vague memory of the oral, but I just fluffed my 4 quadrants, and it was like, oh my goodness, I'm never going to become a member. But I was very fortunate because I had been mentored by a certain Chris Mancini.
How funny. She gets around.
He really does get
You
around.
you can blame it all on me, Jane.
Yeah, I will.
We have had one applicant, bless her heart, that was so anxious and terrified. She was clenching her jaw so much that she broke a tooth. So that's how scary, you know. And it's terrifying, and it's that for some people it's so important. For some people, it might be that they need it for their job. We've had a few of those. And so it's so important to them, and they're so terrified that they're not going to, to get through or do something wrong or fluff up, that, they just get themselves such a state, and we just want to make them feel better and put them at ease. It's just, yeah.
Tough. We're not selling it very well, I have to say. All been there.
Oh no, we're not. We are.
We want people to become. We really do want people to become members, and our aim is to be kind, fair, and effective with owners, candidates, handlers, and their dogs.
Yeah. Just going to bring up a little comment from Sarah, who says, I did my assessment about 5 years ago. The written work in advance was good to get your mind focused. The actual class I had to teach was slightly scary, as it's a class that I had never done before, and I had a dog that, in my opinion, shouldn't have been in the class. Actually being interviewed by the assessors afterwards made it all okay, as I was able to explain my thinking as to why I did what I did when teaching the class, and I passed. Best thing I've ever done. There you go. Well done, Sarah.
Oh,
and with that in mind, just this one, Rachel's been listening to us, I think, or watching us every night. So I found it nerve-wracking, suffer dreadfully from anxiety. Any tips on being calm for my next attempt? So we kind of discussed on the chat about her, me not passing first time, and she said, oh, that makes me feel better because I didn't pass first time either. So tips for anxiety, tips for being prepared, maybe we can just give a couple of them before we move on.
Well, I mean, this might touch into the area that we want to move into next. I don't know whether we want to talk about what we're doing about the current assessment process, and that might help with anxiety. Is obviously we've talked about what was, where it came about, and where we were last year with doing our assessments. But for a while now, we've been very much concerned that we get it right for the candidates. We are able to give an opportunity to get the best out of them and put them at ease. So we're currently in a review phase, and it will be published in the end of this month, a review of our assessment process to make it, a goal to make it much more inclusive, to accommodate those with anxiety. So, for example, I think it was at the last assessment of last year, we had a lady who was really quite concerned about her class, and she asked for some support and some help from the assessors, which you can always do, always open to support you. So for this particular lady, for example, she asked for one of the assessors to write down the names of the dogs and the people for her, because that would have helped her, and it did. So we put the names up behind the people, just took a little bit of the workload from her. But our goal going forwards is to be so we're being audited as well at the moment as well, so we're trying to put everything together at the same time. So we will be publishing much more detailed criteria on the theory, so that the theory that you need to sit, if you've already passed, so we've got some people that are carrying over their theory this year, the theory is much more detailed in what is required from you, and this criteria that we're marking you against is set effectively by the regulator in order for our candidates to be able to apply to the APDT, Association of Behaviour Training Council, is that they can then become an ATI, animal training instructor, on their register. So in order to meet their criteria, such that anybody who passes our assessment will be proven to have met the ATI standards, we have to demonstrate that our candidates have passed and met the criteria. So the theory is much more proscribed as to how we mark it. So the candidates now will get visibility of what it is that they're earning marks for within the context of the questions. And then they will be then given the questions back, which have been marked by the two assessors. So we currently have two assessors. As Chris was saying, back in the day, they had one assessor, but so we always have two assessors, quite unique for assessments in training. So we're having two assessors, and the candidate will get their theory feedback, and then that will inform anything else carrying forward in terms of their theory oral board. And then on the practical side of it, just so that people know exactly what it is that you're being assessed against, and is the criteria breakdown. So it is almost, we try to make these things as objective as possible, taking out any margin of subjectivity from it. So it is almost like, did I see evidence of that candidate coaching a client through a different technique, maybe because the dog struggled because of this and that? Did they accommodate for that? Were they able to be flexible? Did they demonstrate raising and lowering of criteria? All of these things. So you'll be able to see exactly what it is that will be almost ticked against. So all the yeses are there to do, has this candidate demonstrated evidence that they can do this? And way in advance what it is that we'll be marking you against. And then the follow-up afterwards, which is the sort of review oral stage, is again where we just go through the practical sheet, and provided all of the criteria, which is sort of dovetailed in with the ABTC's criteria, are met, then within 2 weeks you'll be informed that you've passed. But again, we are trying to look at different ways of being much more inclusive, so that we've even rephrased and restyled some of our questions in response to some excellent feedback from some of our members and external bodies, to include neurodivergent individuals. What can we do to make the process easier for them? Because it's going into an assessment where you don't know what it is that they're looking for, or don't know what it is that they're asking you. In advance, that's going to be a little bit of, and then if we don't see evidence in the practical, don't panic, because that's what the oral's for. The oral's board to say, well, all of the dogs in your class were absolutely immaculate. Talk us through how maybe if a problem was going wrong, what would you do? And then tick that box, because although you didn't demonstrate it because it wasn't your fault, we're able to follow up in the oral. Sorry, I'm mindful that I've just gambled on and on. But I hope that answers some questions.
No, that's fine, Denise. I was going to ask you that, you're working on our assessment revisions. Obviously, as an association over the years, the assessment has evolved as different people have taken it on, as there's been changes in the industry. So I think, it's a natural progression that we always look at processes and want to strive to do better. So brilliant. Yeah, they're really, really great. Jane, maybe you can help us out with this. What kind of skills should you have to make a great dog trainer?
Oh, Jane.
Oh, good grief. Put me on the spot. You I think primarily the skill you
Good
need to be a
communication.
great sorry you need to be able to work with people. That's what I love doing. I love working with people, and I love working with people who share their lives with dogs. You need to be an excellent communicator. You need to understand canine body language primarily, and human body language as well. And you need to be flexible. There's more than one way to teach the same behavior. You're working with different people who have different needs, who have different expectations, different dogs. Every client that I see with every dog is unique, and you need to be able to tailor your training to them. With regards to your assessment, that's something that you're interested in. You need to be able to demonstrate how to teach various exercises, from perhaps or for perhaps somebody who's not taught their dog to sit to somebody who has a 10-minute sit stay, who knows. But we want to see that trainers are flexible, and that they can teach an exercise from scratch right through to an advanced level if needs be. But I would say to be a good dog trainer, you really need to be able to work with people and understand their needs and the needs of their dogs. Does
Great.
that answer your question?
Absolutely. Anyone else got anything to add on that one? No?
No, I think Jane's right. It's about we all join this because we all love dogs. That's where our lives, careers start, really. But really, it is about us being able to impart those skills to people, the owners or the handlers, who it's their first experience of a dog. So you've got to be able to coach them in how to do what you're requiring the necessary to do, to settle on a mat or walk next to you nicely. So it's about the skill set of helping somebody who's struggling to get that skill over. So it's very much people orientated, although most people, like I say, think it's all about teaching dogs. It's really about teaching people to teach their dogs.
I think the analogy is if you need a plumber, the plumber comes in with their toolkit and they fix the radiator and then they leave. If you need a dog trainer, then the dog trainer comes with their toolkit, they show you how to use it, and then they leave. So when we're giving people that toolkit, we really need to be able to communicate on lots of different levels.
And really, dog trainer's not the right title, is it? Because the dog's the easy bit, isn't it? Because
That's a contentious one, isn't it? Worldwide.
But we don't do much training of the dog, do we? Is what I'm saying. Not. I'm not going down the other rabbit hole.
No, don't go down that one.
So, and often we're counsellors, really, aren't we? Support network, because especially when people have got puppies, people are so shocked at how hard it is. They just were not expecting it to be as difficult as it can be. Sometimes people get the dream puppy and they think it's easy, and I'm kind of like, wait till it gets to adolescence.
Yeah.
But, so it's kind of trying to manage their expectations, and whichever bit of that journey is easy or hard for them.
Yeah, I think.
So,
You're right. I think there is an enormous amount of counselling that does go on, and I think again, that's why I get a puppy every now and again, is to remind myself how damned hard it is.
how easy it is. So I had an easy puppy. I was like, it's easy. I don't know what the problem is.
My adolescent is in the lounge.
Mine's there.
My 12-year-old is down here.
No, they're fab, and it's lovely. And as you say, Denise, it is really good, isn't it? Because then you're like, I'm getting a puppy. Is everything that I'm teaching people is that the right thing to do? Because and then you can say, well, actually, you can kind of get different ideas how that you tell them. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Always there's new stuff to learn, and you just tweak things and change things slightly. You never stop doing that. I mean, I don't know how many times I've changed my classes recently in the last 3 or 4 years. It's like, wow, oh, we don't do that anymore, we'll do this. And yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I was just going to say, you talk about flexibility, and full members of the APDT are expected to do a certain amount of professional development per year to keep their skill sets up to date. But Chris is absolutely right. Within that, there are certain things that we focus on and we teach now. We certainly weren't teaching 12 or 15 years ago. I mean, I include in my classes a presentation about canine body language. And we weren't doing that 12 years ago. I don't think we really thought about it that much. And the importance of sleep and how important sleep is for puppies. Certainly didn't really acknowledge that a few years ago. But the science behind training and behavior moves on all the time, and we have to be ahead of that. We really do. That's our responsibility.
great. So Chris, if you feel like, well, maybe I want to apply for membership, I'm not sure, perhaps you can just tell us a little bit about how the education course can help people prepare or develop or ready for assessment.
So, so I guess we have quite a few people come on the education course that have not done any training whatsoever. So they come along and they do the foundation, but then we often have people coming along to the advanced course because they're already training, but they maybe have only just trained with one club, for example. So they can expand their skill set, learn different ways to the exercises, because that is quite important so that they can adapt. They'll learn skills to help with training people with disabilities, and again, actually how to set up a class environment and how to communicate to a class as a whole as well as individually, which are all things that will be assessed if you do want to take your assessment. And plus you're making a network of people as well. So yeah, I think we've had a lot of our students have come through and done our part 1 and part 2, and well, now 4 members. In fact, Sarah that messaged earlier, she did our advanced a few years ago. So.
And another thing to mention on that probably actually is if you do the education courses, you are then allowed, invited to become an to become an APDT student member. And APDT student members have quite a lot of access to full members. So it means that they can go along and watch other people's classes, or when people are looking for an assistant, they'll go out to the student members looking for help with that. So I think that's also something worth highlighting, is if you're not sure about, am I ready for membership, I want to go and do an education course, you can then apply for student memberships, right? Isn't it, Chris? Is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Once you've done foundation and part 2, and then you can become a student member. And we tend to say, I think it's about 5 years. You know, we like to take your assessment within that time, because that's giving you enough time then to go out, get some more experience, and and go and watch other class stuff like that.
Great.
But even if you're just still thinking about it and you are only training with one club, it's worth going and looking at some other classes, how their setup is and run, because otherwise we just think this is the only way to do it. But it's there's so many varieties and different ways to run your classes out there now. It's really worth going and just popping along and having a look. Most people are accommodating, some not so much, but but if you can get the opportunity to pop along, then do.
And Chris, you had a little claim to fame that you said earlier. You said that You assessed Chirag Patel, and I used to assist Chirag Patel back in the day for a little while.
Yeah.
So,
I think I was more stressed than him, not because Chirag Patel was just Chirag Patel, a wonderful young man that I was very fortunate to go and assess and think, oh my God, this guy's amazing. But it was awful traffic getting across London, as you can imagine, in an evening. So I ended up being late. So the poor guy was stressed himself. But yeah, it was just like, yeah. The potential was just there already in abundance. So yeah, my claim to fame. I assessed him and obviously passed him.
does anyone have any interesting stories maybe about what made you decide to become a dog trainer? A dog training instructor?
Dog training. May I just say that I have done the journey from the person who didn't know one end of a dog from another and started at that APDT instructor's course, and I kind of rocked up because my background is in entertainment. I used to work in Hollywood, and I don't know how I ended up doing this, but anyway, I rocked up to the instructor's course, and I just thought I'm just going to be a fish out of water here, and I've never felt so welcomed. And there was such a lovely variety of people with different skills, but the instructor's course was amazing. And then I was very fortunate because Chris was in London at that time. So I was mentored with by Chris and Val. And then I did my assessment. And then I joined the committee, and here I am as the chair. So I think I've done that journey.
You've done the journey.
I have, and I can wear the t-shirt.
That was all in 6 months.
Yeah, I did it in half an hour. I still don't know one end of a dog from another. But anyway, what I'm saying is, what a lovely community to be a part of. And I literally, I knew a bit. I mean, I have an A-level in psychology and basic stuff, but that instructor's course and the education course was such a brilliant foundation to start this career.
We have met so many lovely people, and I've got a lot of good friends that we've met through the instructor's course and through APDT and being on the committee and everything. It's lovely. It's just it is it's a really nice community, that's for sure.
Anyone else got a story about how they became a dog trainer before we've got some comments and questions?
I became a dog trainer because I had dogs, and I was just like fascinated by what and how and why they tick. And then you go to classes, and then you attend a class, and then you start going, I wonder how you can become. How do you know this? How does my instructor know this? And then you think, well, are the courses out there? And then yes, there are. So you go do the courses, and then I ended up choosing the APDT primarily because. I think we are the only ones still not for profit, so all of our membership fees goes into supporting the membership and growing and spreading the word and supporting our kind, fair and effective message. So that's why I joined the APDT, and yes, and then you end up on the committee. Before you know it, you're on the committee, and then you just I think it's part of the nature of the APDT trainers is that we just want to give. We just want to give to help more people get on to the nicer side of dog training. That's what I would say. So
yeah. I always say I'm never going to be rich because I'd rather give for nothing and make sure the people and the animals are okay, because that's just how it is. But yeah, I mean, I became a dog trainer, but in a slightly different way, because I worked from a veterinary nursing point of view, and then back in the day there was no such thing as an instructor's course as such to do dog training, and I ended up going in and doing the coat courses, and that's a general behaviour thing, not just for dogs, but obviously gave me bit of a background in behaviour, which was very useful. And then we set up at the vets, and there wasn't a lot of choice of organisations to join, shall we say. So this was the one.
Great.
We are. I'm proud to say that I think we're still the gold standard when it comes to dog training, professional, and as Denise says, being not for profit means that the money doesn't go into somebody's pocket somewhere. It just goes back into making the APDT.
I pressed it too soon. I'm sorry, Jane. I pressed it too soon. I wanted to do it at the end of your speech and I got carried away. I'm sorry. Continue.
Thank you. Do I get my Oscar now?
I was like, what's that about? Where did that come from?
What's going on?
I've thrown you now. I'm sorry.
Yes, I've lost my mojo.
She's got all flustered.
But you're right. And if we go back to the why did you become a dog trainer or why did you become an APDT member? For me, it was like a no-brainer. It was like a natural progression. And years ago, we used to, in the days of the first internet, I used to be on this forum called Dog Pages, which was all about rescue dogs. And there it would be people saying like, oh, I'm going for my APDT assessment. And it was always the one, I'm studying really hard, and people that I sort of looked up to online, 'cause I'm a bit of a geek, can you tell? They were going for APDT assessments. And then I mentored under a wonderful trainer, Karen England, who taught me a lot about emotions and presenting and being able to teach people. And she was always like, you've got to get your APDT assessment and then you... So that's what I did. That's my kind of backstory, I suppose. Yeah. Okay, so can I bring some comments, some questions up? Isabel's got one. And she says, although I've run a few group classes, I mainly focus on one-to-ones. Will this make a difference when I apply to do the assessment? Any thoughts?
Go on, Jane.
That's a good question. I mainly focused on one-to-one training. I do run classes now. It wasn't something that I thought I would do, but it's a really valuable skill to be able to teach a class of people with their dogs of different breeds. And I would suggest that you get some experience of shadowing classes, different venues. It will really help you to be an all-round good dog trainer.
Yeah, teaching a class is very different to teaching just a one-to-one, because you have got to keep an eye on the whole class and not focus on one person, which is very easy to do if you're not careful. You can get just sucked into the helping one person. So it is a skill in itself. So you're certainly going to need to get out there and get a bit of practice at that.
Great. Okay. Someone's computer's going off in the background. I can hear it on the recording, just so you know.
I'm afraid that could be my husband.
I saw him then. Oh my goodness.
I'm so sorry.
That was hilarious. So Katie said, the thought of booking my assessment is terrifying. How much experience would you all suggest is ideal before even thinking of booking an assessment? That was going to be one of my questions, so we can answer.
Katie's my niece. For goodness sake, woman, you're fine. Just get on and do it.
We normally say 3 years, right?
Yeah, it was 3 years for me.
Yeah.
Katie's done the foundation and part 2 course as well, and she's come up and assisted me a little bit too. So, and she's helping another member. So I think she should give it a go.
I mean, and again, that's in part what the criteria, the theory and the practical, which will be online on our website very shortly. If you read through all that list and you go, yeah, I can do all of that. I'm ready. And I've got experience of class shadowing and I'm confident. It's reading the list and thinking, can I demonstrate, or have I the ability to demonstrate all of this? and if not, don't panic, because you've got the practical oral as well to support it. But yeah, that's what I would do.
Probably best I don't assess you though, Katie.
I'd imagine so, right?
And I mean, it is actually, we do have with the assessors, just so people put people's minds at rest, is that we do have a roundup of, does anybody have a conflict of interest here? So, for example, that's actually a case in point. So Chris would not be allowed to assess her niece because it's a conflict of interest. So we do try to make everything as impartial as possible. And yeah, so cool.
Great. And Kerry said, I was super nervous at my assessment, but found that everyone was there to encourage me.
That's right.
That's right. Woo.
And honestly, if you have
we want you to pass, don't we?
We do. And again, it's if you're struggling, the assessors are there to help you. They're not there to be the silent little robot in the corner, but we try to be as unobtrusive as possible and hide in the corner so that we don't interrupt or upset your flow or anything like that. But if you need help, honestly, they're there to help. Don't be frightened of asking.
Barking Buds, that's a good name. Do you guys offer this webinar recorded? I missed the first bit about assessments in general. We're looking into something like that as more of like a long-term thing, but you can watch this live replay on Facebook or on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/APDT_UK. So all the lives are there under the live tab. We're on day 17, I believe, of the lives of Train Your Dog Month. I was putting it in today. It's like day 17.
I'm
so
counting.
Yeah. Chris was one of my assessors. Oh, okay. That's nice. Oh.
Did I pass you, Kerry?
I think she did, yeah. I think you did. And then a slightly longer one. Just going to fill up the screen a bit. Hi, you're really excited to hear this tonight as I have my assessment in May. I've been mentored in my local training centre, owner used to do the assessments 30 odd years ago, as Chris mentioned. Because my focus is on beginners and novice training, I realise my professional boundaries and wouldn't try and train beyond my knowledge. Just wondering if there's an expectation to have more advanced experience with lesson plans. I've been a trainer and coach in my previous career before retiring in both sport and a professional capacity. So question there is, how advanced would your plan need to be?
So it's a really good question, and I think that when the practical criteria goes up, it will answer that in greater depth of what we expect from a class lesson plan. So we expect, for example, that you've got some structure to it, that you've got an equipment list or even something like that as basic, what you're trying to achieve, how you're going to achieve it, and if nothing else, I mean, the lesson plan is an aid memoir to yourself, because nerves get ahead of you. You want to make sure that you're sticking to what you're planning on doing, but it's a guidance really, is because obviously you might start off wanting to teach X, Y, or Z, and then recognise that the tripod antiquated greyhound in the corner possibly can't do what you've got planned. So it's having some of that adaptation. But yeah, so the criteria of like what you need to do, we ask you to do 4 exercises, which is explain a marker, lucid walking, a down, and a leave it. And all of those are selected, those 4 exercises are selected because we can pull from them certain other criteria, sort of how you managed moving exercises, for example, or how you manage the environment when teaching it down to the antiquated greyhound that's got 3 legs. So it's how you manage those things. But having a lesson plan, and you are required as part of your theory assessment to submit a lesson plan, and also an intake form, for example. So as part of trying to make things more comfortable for you, the future will be that when you submit your intake form as part of your theory, you'll be using that within your practical. So your own intake form, your own questions will be used at the practical assessment as your intake, just to help the nerves a little bit. So it'll all be outlined on there, and it's much more prescriptive than we ever used to do. Yeah, so just to help you even more get to where we want you to be, which is a full member.
Great. And I would just add, if you're thinking about advanced progression, what I got from that perhaps was you were thinking about, what if I have someone in class who's a world trick training champion, and really just think about, really just think about when you're teaching an exercise, your 3Ds, because they are going to be your foundation for everything when you're training. So if you've got someone that can do a 10-minute sit stay, well, great. Can they do a 10-minute sit stay while you jump around them, while you pogo, while you lie down on the floor? Lying down on the floor is a great way to add distraction to a stay, because the dog wants to come over and give you a kiss. So that's what I would look at. Look at your 3Ds of difficulty in dog training, and apply that to your exercises, if that's the question that you're asking. It's easy.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, I think we have covered Let's Talk assessments. What do you think, ladies?
I think so too.
Does anyone have any other questions, comments? I've got this lovely little one which I'll just put on the screen, which says, I passed and have never looked back. APDT is the best family to be a part of. We might steal that, Kerry Jane, because that is a lovely APDT.
Thank you,
is
Kerry
the best.
Jane.
It's very nice. Money is in the post. No. Very nice.
I mean,
So,
as an aside, we will be at Crufts this year, so if anybody has any questions about assessments and the educational courses, and that, just rock up and we'll be there. We will all be there on stand. So if you've got a question that you couldn't put in tonight, rock up there and we'll be able to speak to you in person as well.
That's right. We'll be there.
Cool.
perfect. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Had some great numbers watching. Thank you guys for coming and joining me on a Sunday night.
No worries.
And that just leaves me to say, come back tomorrow. Yes, day 17, Sarah. I'm counting them up. Don't worry. We are nine days until the end of January, and then it'll be a little G&T.
Just one.
Only a little one.
Large one. You can buy me bottles of gin on. I digress. Tomorrow I'm going to be joined by Caris, I can't get my words out now and I haven't had a drink. Caris Vincent, who's also on the committee and owner of Charismatic Pets. Charismatic Dogs. I'm going to get it wrong, aren't I now? Oh no, flustered. She's going to be talking to us all about bull breeds. So bull breeds are her jam. They're kind of my jam too. I did have a Staffy. She did have a Staffy. She's got a Frenchie now. I've got a Frenchie now. Might just talk about our dogs a lot. No, not really. She's going to be talking to us about owning and training bull breeds and their kind of quirks. So it'll be me and her going back and forth and probably going a bit gooey-eyed over bull breeds because they're so lovely. So come back at 6 tomorrow.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.